I was excited, genuinely excited. It had been a while since I felt this way about any event. The invitation was embossed, sealed in gold, and addressed directly to me. I was the guest of honor at one of the most exclusive galas in the city, held at the luxurious Grandworth Hotel, known for hosting royalty, billionaires, and celebrities. It felt surreal. Dressed in a sleek black gown, I walked up to the VIP entrance with quiet confidence. I had worked hard for this moment. I had earned it. But the second I approached the velvet rope, I felt it, the shift. 2 security guards standing by the entrance looked me up and down. One of them narrowed his eyes, then took a step forward and held out his hand. "Ma'am, this entrance is for VIPs only. Delivery is around back." I blinked. I thought he was joking. "I'm on the list," I said calmly, pulling out my invite. He didn't even look at it. Instead, the other guard laughed under his breath. "Yeah, and I'm the Queen of England." I tried again, explaining I was personally invited, even named in the program. But before I could finish, one of them raised a walkie-talkie and mumbled, "We've got someone trying to sneak into VIP, might need backup." People walked by, staring, whispering. Some even pulled out their phones. I stood there burning with shame, my heart pounding. It was like being invisible and on display all at once. But deep down, I wasn't angry. Not yet, just disappointed. Because this kind of treatment, it wasn't new to me. They didn't recognize me, and that was their first mistake. They had no idea who I was, but they were about to find out. Growing up, no one ever expected much from me. Not because I wasn't smart or capable, because I was, but because of where I came from. I was raised by my mom, in a tiny apartment in a neighborhood where dreams felt like luxuries. People there didn't talk about billion-dollar companies or tech breakthroughs. They talked about making it through the day. My mom worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table and clothes on our backs. I watched her sacrifice everything, never complaining, always pushing forward. I promised myself I wouldn't just survive, I would thrive. School wasn't easy. Teachers often ignored me, or called on other students instead. I was the quiet girl who got good grades but never got noticed. The message was clear, I wasn't one of them. After college, I bounced from job to job. Each time I pitched my ideas, investors looked past me. I remember one pitch meeting in particular. The room was full of suits and cold stares. When I started talking about my project, an AI platform to help small minority-owned businesses grow, some investors smirked. One said, "You're ambitious, but this market is too small." Another said, "We don't invest in startups led by people like you." It hurt, but it didn't break me. I took every no as fuel. I spent nights coding in my apartment, working 2 jobs during the day to pay bills. I learned everything about business, tech, and leadership. Slowly my project took shape. I launched my company with barely any funding, just sheer will and a few supportive friends who believed in me. Years of hard work followed. I faced obstacles that often felt impossible: racism, sexism, being underestimated. But my company grew, not just in size, but in impact. We built tools that helped thousands of small businesses, giving them access to resources they never had before. And then, the breakthrough. A major investor believed in us. That investment catapulted my company into the big leagues. Suddenly I was featured in magazines and on TV. I was invited to speak at conferences. People started calling me a billionaire CEO. But no matter how much money I made or how many awards I won, I stayed grounded. I never forgot my roots, or the people who doubted me. That's what drove me to keep pushing harder. Back at the entrance, the cold stare from the 2 guards hadn't softened. If anything, they looked more certain they were right. The first guard, a tall man with a tight jaw, crossed his arms, and gave me a slow, skeptical look. "Ma'am, we need to see your ID and your credentials," he said, voice dripping with doubt. I handed over my wallet, pulling out my driver's license and the official invite from the event organizers. I watched as they took my ID, pretending to examine it carefully, even though I could see them whispering to each other behind their hands. One of them chuckled, low and mean. "You sure you didn't borrow that from your boss? Or maybe this whole thing's fake. Their words hit me harder than I expected. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat, and met their eyes steadily. I'm not lying, you can call the event coordinator. You'll hear my name loud and clear. The other guard scoffed. Lady, you think just because you say so, we're supposed to believe you. We get a lot of people trying to sneak in, you're just another one. Around us, the guests kept passing by, their eyes flicking to me, some whispering, others openly staring. The feeling of being judged was suffocating. I felt the heat rise to my face, the familiar sting of humiliation creeping in. I'd been here before, more times than I could count, being doubted because of my skin color, my background, my gender. It was a weight I carried every day, but one I refused to let define me. Still, in that moment, standing at the VIP entrance, it was hard not to feel small. They kept holding on to my ID, like they didn't want to let me in. And then, one of the guards pressed his walkie-talkie again. We might have a problem here, he muttered. Someone's claiming to be a VIP, sending backup. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. They had no idea who I really was, but that was about to change. Just as the tension was about to snap, a sharp voice cut through the air. A woman in a tailored suit hurried toward us, her face pale and eyes wide with urgency. Miss Bennett. I'm so sorry, she began breathlessly, as she reached my side. I looked at her, confused and wary. She didn't wait for an introduction. You've been waiting for you inside. The keynote speech starts in 10 minutes. What happened out here? Her gaze snapped to the guards, who now looked caught off guard, their smug expressions fading. The event director's voice was firm and commanding. Do you even know who this is? This is Vanessa Bennett. She's the CEO of BenTech, the company revolutionizing AI for small businesses. She's our keynote speaker. You're blocking the main event. The guards exchanged nervous glances. One of them let out a quiet, "shit" under his breath, and dropped his walkie-talkie. People around us started to notice the sudden change in atmosphere. Guests peeked over their shoulders, whispers spreading like wildfire. Someone pulled out their phone, probably recording. The silence felt heavy, almost electric. The director turned to me, clearly embarrassed but trying to hide it. Please, come inside, right now. I nodded, keeping my calm, even though my heart was racing. This moment felt surreal, being caught between invisibility and sudden spotlight, humiliation and recognition. As I walked past the guards, I could feel their eyes on me. I held my head high, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing me flustered or upset. Inside, the event buzzed with anticipation. But outside, those guards were left standing there, their mistake laid bare. They didn't realize I was a billionaire CEO, a woman who had built a company from nothing. Someone who could change the very industry they worked in, and that was just the beginning. Once inside the grand ballroom, the atmosphere was completely different. The room buzzed with chatter and laughter, but as soon as I stepped in, the energy shifted. I wasn't just another guest, I was Vanessa Bennett, the keynote speaker. Many in the crowd had read about my journey in magazines and online articles. But seeing me walk in, calm, composed and unshaken, felt like a surprise to some. I could feel eyes on me, some full of admiration, others quietly uncomfortable. Those who had whispered outside seemed to melt away into the background. The spotlight was on me now. When it was time, I walked onto the stage. The room fell silent. The only sound was the soft hum of cameras clicking, capturing this moment. I didn't talk about the guards or the humiliation at the door. Instead, I shared my story. I spoke about the countless times I'd been underestimated, because of my race, my gender, or my background. How those moments had fueled my fire, not extinguished it. I told them about my mother's sacrifices, the late nights working 2 jobs, and the years spent proving myself in rooms where I was the only Black woman. I spoke about resilience, about owning your worth, and about breaking barriers. Some in the audience shifted uncomfortably, no doubt recognizing their own biases in my words. Others nodded, inspired and hopeful. My message wasn't just mine, it was for every person who had ever felt invisible, dismissed or undervalued. By the time I finished, the room was on its feet, applauding with genuine respect and emotion. The silent revenge wasn't about humiliation or anger, it was about reclaiming my space, my voice, and my power. And in that moment, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. After the applause died down and the gala continued, I slipped away quietly, but the ripples of that night spread far beyond the ballroom. The hotel's general manager found me later backstage. He was nervous, apologizing profusely. "Miss Bennett, I can't tell you how sorry we are for what happened at the entrance, it should never have happened." I nodded, appreciating the apology, but knowing words alone weren't enough. He promised to review security protocols and make changes. I later learned the 2 guards who blocked me were quietly removed from their positions. That same night, word spread fast, and many guests who had witnessed the scene expressed outrage online. A week later, a formal letter arrived from the hotel's CEO. It was a public apology, and they offered me a lifetime VIP membership at every event held on their property. I read it carefully. It was a nice gesture, but I declined. Instead, I made a different choice. I donated $1 million to a program that trains young Black women in technology and leadership, something close to my heart. I named the program after my mother, whose strength and sacrifices had shaped my entire journey. The media picked up the story: interviews, talk shows, podcasts. I spoke not to boast, but to shine a light on the barriers still facing many talented women and minorities. I wanted to turn my experience into something meaningful, to inspire change. The incident at the gala became a catalyst, a conversation about judgment, bias, and the power of persistence. The guards who once doubted me were forgotten, but the message I shared remained: sometimes, the greatest victories come not from revenge, but from using your power to uplift others. That was my real win. Looking back at that night, I don't remember feeling angry, at least not for long. What stayed with me was something stronger, a deep sense of purpose. Being judged before you even speak is something many of us know too well. I've faced it countless times, and I know I'll face it again. But each time I remind myself, their opinion doesn't define me. It never has. That night outside the gala was a test, not just of patience, but of resilience and grace. I chose not to let their ignorance break me. Instead, I used it to fuel my voice and my mission. If you've ever been made to feel like you don't belong, like you're invisible, remember this. The most powerful people in the room are often the ones no one expects, the ones they try to push aside, dismiss, or underestimate. Your worth isn't measured by who lets you in or who shuts the door. It's measured by what you do once you're inside. So hold your head high, stand tall, keep pushing forward, because the world needs your voice, your vision, your story, and one day when they realize who you really are, it will be too late. You will have already changed the game. If this story moved you, please take a moment to like, comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your support means the world to us, and helps bring more stories like this to light. Don't forget to subscribe for more real emotional stories that inspire and empower. Together we can keep telling stories that matter. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, stay strong and keep shining.